Dr. Robert Mogielnicki. Recent attacks to oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman and other incidents concerning Saudi oil installations have drastically escalated tension in the GCC region. What, when it comes to other infrastructures such as those related to water?
Yes, so after the attacks on September 14th that targeted the Saudi Aramco oil facilities, many international commentators, government officials, and other analysts have indicated that a escalation in these attacks may target desalination infrastructure in the Gulf. There is some credibility to this claim because back in June, the Houthis launched a projectile that landed near a desalination plant in Jazan in southern Saudi Arabia. And then in July, cyber attackers actually infiltrated a desalination system within Bahrain's electricity and water authority. So there's some credence to these claims, but I wanted to investigate to what degree the vulnerability is real, and if there is a vulnerability there, what are the ways in which Gulf Arab states can mitigate this threat. And I think in order to do that, you really need to look at the desalination system as a very complex structure that incorporates not just desalination plants, but also the source of desalinated water, the desalination plants themselves, the transport infrastructure, storage tanks, and then ultimately look at the ways in which this entire system moves water from the source to the end user. So if you look at it from that point of view, what my research found is that this is a very complex system. As you move away from the source of water, the potential impact of an attack on a desalination system goes from one that is very high to one that is much lower, because this system is becoming dispersed as it gets closer to the end user. But at the same time, as you move away from that source, the potential vulnerabilities, the points of that a hostile actor could exploit a weakness in the system, those opportunities increase drastically.
So, following the points you raised, what are the countries where this risk, this vulnerability is higher?
Well, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates produce the greatest percentage of desalinated water in the region. I mean, Saudi Arabia alone produces between 18 and 22% of the global output of desalinated water. And then the remaining Gulf countries also rely heavily on desalination, but do not produce as large of a total output. I think given the recent escalation between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia's desalination infrastructure is probably most at risk for a potential attack by a hostile actor. But that being said, Saudi Arabia's eastern coast, or at least the desalination plants on Saudi Arabia's eastern coast, share the same water source with other Gulf Arab countries. So in that respect, any potential attack that would contaminate or affect the source of water in the Persian Gulf would also affect other Gulf Arab countries, and that complicates the decision with respect to any hostile actors in the region.
Is that enough for deterrence?
Well, I think the likelihood of an attack on a desalination system in the Gulf that would impact local residents in a negative way is very, very low. But that being said, there are many opportunities wherein a hostile actor could target an element of the desalination system that would not produce necessarily harm to local residents, but it would send a message that this critical infrastructure is not safe from attack. For example, strategic water reserves that are stored in plants or in underground reservoirs could be attacked or even contaminated. And that would not necessarily directly affect local residents, but it would send the message that these strategic water reserves are not necessarily safe.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr.
Sure. Thank you very much.